Now we're going to turn to something that really wasn't spoken about during the general election, but many people say will have lots of consequences, dire consequences, should it go ahead. And this is the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TTIP. And yesterday on Twitter, Luke Ming Flanagan, the MEP, posted a video with the hashtag TTIP in there. And it looked, very dodgy. It looked to me a bit of a conspiracy going on with certain information in relation to the negotiations between the EU and the USA. And Luke Ming Flanagan is on the line now. Luke, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. So, for listeners who haven't seen the video, tell us the sequence of events.
Well, the sequence of events is that as an MEP, in the future I will be voting on this TTIP agreement, and as the negotiations are going on, we are now at the 13th negotiation between the United States and the European Union, and as each one is finished, consolidated documents highlighting what went on in those discussions and what has been agreed between the two parties are published and made available to members of the European Parliament in a place that's called the TTIP Reading Room. So I decided, I suppose obviously as an MEP, I wanted to see what was in some of these documents. I was aware of the onerous security requirements around getting the documents, but what I wasn't aware of was that when I went down there, I would not be allowed to transcribe verbatim and report it to people. Now, I could make a summary of it and report it to people, but I wasn't allowed to give it to them word for word. So I went down to this reading room. I was met by someone who I suppose you would describe as a minder. They requested that I hand over all mobile devices, laptops, cameras, if I had them. They were taken off me and they were locked in a cupboard. I had to sign a document if I wanted to enter the room, and on that document it made it quite clear that if I revealed any of the information verbatim, there was basically a hostage-like situation, and that was that if I did that, no other MEP would ever be allowed into this room again. So I went in there. I was handed a piece of paper that was heavily impregnated with the words draft and lines put through it so that I couldn't photocopy it easily when I brought it out of the room. I was then asked to sign another document for each of the papers that I wanted to read, and then I was told at that time that I wouldn't be allowed to bring it out verbatim. So at that point I decided I'd leave the room and I'd come out and report that. Now, when I was standing up to leave the room, I went to open the door, and my minder quickly rushed towards me and told me I wasn't allowed to touch it, because if I opened the door before she keyed in the code, the security would be coming down to see what was going on. So that was the situation, and next week I'm going back in there again, and I intend to get some more detail of what's going on. But there has been a massive leak only the following day after I did it by Greenpeace, where they released the vast majority of the files that have already been discussed. And what we have discovered is that what the European Union was telling us as its starting negotiation position isn't actually their starting negotiation position at all. And a couple of main things that have come out from it: long-standing environmental protections appear to be dropped. In all trade agreements previously, there's a 70-year-old rule enshrined in the World Trade Organization, and it's called the General Exceptions Rule. And that is, and I'll quote it, to protect human, animal and plant life or health. And it's quite clear from these leaks that that whole principle has been dumped, along with the precautionary principle, which means that the onus, there's a very, very strong onus on anyone who wants to introduce something into the market to prove that it's safe. Now it has gone to a risk-based approach that aims to manage hazardous substances rather than avoid them. And finally, I suppose one of the most significant things for it is that it's now quite clear that agriculture, which makes up about 8% of the whole deal, is actually going to be traded off so that we can help our car industry. Well, I've bad news for people. We don't have a car industry in Ireland. So if we are traded off, we will end up with a situation where we will have 80,000 tonnes of beef coming into the EU. We'll have a situation where hormone-treated beef will come into the EU. And we'll have a situation where American farmers who are more heavily subsidised will actually be able to undercut Irish farmers, and you will see an end to the beef industry in this country. So I'm very worried about it, and I want to see it stopped.
Now, they have said in response that that was the opening demand by the United States and it didn't represent the negotiations' conclusion, but they were just things they were looking for and they probably wouldn't get.
Well, they may very well say that, but the important thing here is that we would not have known this but for the fact that they were leaked. And it shows you how important that this process, if it is to continue, or if we are to have some sort of a trade agreement, it has to be done in a more open and transparent way. And people say to me, well, what's the alternative? And what I would say is we need to shift away from liberalisation to sustainable development. And to achieve this, international trading rules should promote environmental, social and human well-being. Now, it might be radical for some politicians in Europe to promote human well-being, but at the end of the day, what else is life about than trying to improve our well-being? But it's very worrying, though. We have a Commissioner Malmström, who, it's a complete joke. She described this as the most open trade agreement of all time. But the most worrying thing that she said was, and I will quote her, she says, "I don't take my mandate from the people." Now, she's deciding the future of our lives, and she says that. Well, I do take the mandate from the people, and they'll remind me very quickly if I didn't. And that's the reason why the structure of the European Union is not right. You have unelected people in closed rooms talking to industry, deciding what's good for us on the basis of what's good for industry. And the two of them aren't necessarily compatible. In fact, quite the opposite in most cases.
At the same time, industry will say 21% of Irish exports go to the US. They pay out €300 million in tariffs to the US. They're just the normal tariffs between countries. They could disappear. It's 73% on food. It's 15% for machinery. These tariffs would be gone, and that would be better for industry in Ireland.
Yeah, and then we could have a situation like what the Commission suggested. This was one of their positives. It would mean that oranges in Seville could be sold in California. Now, unless I've got it wrong, I believe they actually grow oranges in California themselves. And the European Union has signed up to this climate change COP21. Now, how the hell is that going to work if people in Spain are buying oranges in California and vice versa? That helps nobody. That just destroys the planet. And there isn't going to be a lot of business around if we can't breathe the air that's out there.
And what about when you're talking about food and agriculture and GMOs, genetically modified organisms in food and hormones in cows? Is this all scaremongering?
Well, it isn't all scaremongering. It's actually something to be very scared of. Now, maybe people don't place much credibility on politicians, and maybe they don't believe what they say either way, and maybe they're right. But maybe they should listen to all the top chefs in this country, and people like Darina Allen, who say it would be an unmitigated disaster for this country if it happens. And also, let's look at it from a health point of view, from the fact that the Irish Cancer Society have come out against this agreement. Because if it goes through, we will have a situation where we will have a special court for big business called ISDS, or call it the other name they're putting on it, a court system. And you will have a situation here where countries will be sued if they want to have plain packaging on cigarettes because it damages the business of the cigarette companies. And if this agreement goes through, health will come second to business interests. And when the Irish Cancer Society are saying that, and all I know is my own mother unfortunately died from it, but they took damn good care of her from time to time and helped us out an awful lot. I don't think they're in the business of scaremongering. They're saying it because they're worried, and they're saying it because they are scared of what's going to happen.
Now, you were saying that there was a leak during the week of the information, and it came from Greenpeace. Could it be tied up in Brexit? Could it have been leaked by people who want to exit the EU and hyped up to a degree that people who are of the opinion that the UK should stay would read this and say, these unelected people in Brussels, this is typical of them. I'm now going to change my vote.
Well, I would find it difficult to believe that Greenpeace would have any truck with, most of the Brexiteers for a start. And I can't speak for the Green movement, but it is my general experience that they would be optimists about the future of the European Union. While not being very happy with the way it's ran at the moment, they would like to see further integration and a single country called the European Union. So I can't see how it had been done for that reason. But the other side of it is, though, that I will tell you for definite, there's very few UKIP pages at the moment, Facebook pages out there, that are not sharing this video. And tough luck to the European Union if that's what happens to them, because it's meant to be open and transparent. When we were forced to vote for Lisbon the second time, we were told we'd be at the heart of Europe. And I think anyone who thinks that now, I think they'd have to be a little bit deluded or just scared of what it would require to tell the truth, that maybe this isn't working out very well. And maybe we should go back to the original construct, which was countries trading with each other, not countries telling each other what time they can go to the toilet at.
Okay. All right, MEP Luke Ming Flanagan. Thanks very much indeed, Luke. Good to talk to you as always. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye now. All right, that's a view on that. No doubt we're going to hear different views on it, but on the face of it, looking from the video and from the leaks that have come in from Greenpeace, this thing doesn't look to be in our favour. But as I say, other people will have different views. It's the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership between the EU and the United States. 087 77 11 103. The cool scientists on the